Hello and welcome to another episode of App Stories. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Fetici. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're here with another App Stories to talk about, I don't know.
Well,
You had a great idea.
I had an idea. So here's how I pitched it to you. So you're mostly known as a Mac person, as a Mac user.
Yes.
That's sort of your area of coverage on Mac Stories. You do the Mac OS review. And I'm sort of known as the iPad guy, right? I've been using the iPad forever. And, I interviewed Craig Federighi about iPad OS. Like, I'm the iPad person. And we complement each other like that, which I think works well. But
It does.
But you have, for a long time, have been using an iPad alongside your Mac. You wrote about your experiments with Universal Control and Sidecar on multiple occasions on Mac Stories and the Club. And I, especially over the past year, and especially before WWDC and before iPadOS 26, had reapproached the world of macOS because I was frustrated with the iPad. Not that iPadOS is fixing everything, because sure, multitasking is better, local audio capture is better, but there's still the issue of software and third-party apps that you can find on macOS versus iPadOS. But, iPadOS 26 made me happy, but I'm still using macOS alongside the iPad. And so my idea for this episode was to check in on each other on our usage of the platform that we are not known for. So for you, the iPad, and for me, the Mac. I'm
looking forward to it because I don't talk about the iPad enough, I think. I have two iPads. I have the 11-inch iPad Pro, which is kind of my main Mac. That's the work Mac, or not Mac. That's the work iPad. And then I have one generation behind on the iPad Mini, which doesn't get a lot of use these days. And the reason it doesn't is a good place to start, I guess, which is I got the 11-inch iPad Pro because before that, the two iPad Pros I had were the 13-inch models. And while I really enjoyed those because the big screen real estate for doing when I was really actually doing work on them, writing or researching, whatever it was, those big ones aren't great for like reading a book in bed, for instance, or playing games handheld, or a lot of the kind of the hold it in your hands type of content consumption, not as good for, especially reading. And so when I got the latest M4 iPad Pro, I really wanted to go with the 11-inch and see how that changed my usage of the iPad. And I think overall it's been really good for me, even though, as I know you've said before, both here and on Connected, you really like the 13-inch iPad Pro, especially with iPadOS 26, because it gives you that extra room for windowing. It makes, I think, with that size screen, you can do a really nice thirds window setup where you have three in a row. You can do it on the iPad Pro 11-inch too, but it's a little more cramped. But that hasn't really bothered me that much. I guess in a lot of ways, I've still used it in a way like when I was using split view, because I can split it into two halves, which is what I do an awful lot. I think even on my Mac, which I have a 27-inch studio display, I rarely have three apps kind of open, visible. I have them open, but I don't have them visible all at once. So side by side is a pretty typical setup for me, even on the Mac. And that works really well on the 11-inch Pro. So lately, ever since I got iPadOS 26 installed, I've been using the iPad a lot more, because what I'll do, and I actually did this yesterday, I walked down to the local coffee shop with just my iPad. I didn't bring my backpack, anything. I just, grabbed the iPad, walked down to the coffee shop, grabbed a coffee, sat outside, and started doing some email. And then I was catching up on RSS. And then I wrote a link post. It's just smaller, lighter weight tasks that I have to do. I don't typically do a lot of like audio editing on the iPad. I can, but I prefer to do that on a 27-inch display, just because timeline-based editing works better when you have a bigger screen. So I use it for reading email, research, writing, all that kind of thing. And lately, as I've gotten ready to write the macOS review, one of the things I've been doing is doing a lot of the research reading on the iPad. And what I'll do is, especially for things like a PDF, I'll take the PDF and I'm using the Apple Pencil, and I'll highlight everything, and then I'll move to my Mac, where I actually have Mac OS 26 installed. I will put the iPad Pro kind of at the base of my studio display with that highlighted PDF there, and I can use that as I'm writing as a reference for what I want to write about. And then because of universal control, just easily move the cursor down there and scroll through the PDF, then return to Obsidian on my Mac and keep writing. So it's really fit in nicely with my existing systems, even more so than it has in the past, because of the windowing and the fact that I can easily swap between apps a lot better than I could in the past.
Mm-hmm. How many iPads did you say you have? 3?
No, I have two. I
Two.
have
Two.
I have the 11-inch
The 11,
Pro and
the 11
and the
and
Mini,
the Mini.
the
Have you
older Mini.
can you put 26 on the old Mini?
You can. I did it.
Yeah.
I remember asking you this, and you weren't sure, and actually you can, and I did it, and it's fine.
It's
I mean,
fine.
it's like it's not bad really. I haven't used it a lot yet with 26, so I'm not I'm not really comfortable saying that it's great performance, but I did get it installed and messed around with it a little bit.
Do you feel like if Apple refreshes the iPad Pros later this year, like in October with the M5, do you think you're gonna upgrade?
Nope, I don't think so. I think that as good as this OS is, it does go back easily to the older models, and I don't think that I'm going to need the added performance right away. I think I'm totally fine with the M4 for a while. A lot of these M series chips, I've really found that, I'm using an M1 Max Mac Studio, and I don't feel any need to replace that anytime soon, because I'm able to compare it side by side with the loaner that I have from Apple, which is the M4 Max MacBook Pro. And yes, the M4 is faster. I can tell it's faster. But the difference between, doing things like transcoding video or something on the MacBook Pro versus the M1 Mac Studio is very small. I mean, maybe it's 30% faster, but you're talking about a render that's maybe 20 seconds faster as a result. And so it's just not to the point where I feel like I'm being slowed down in my daily work by having the M1 Max. I noticed the difference, but I don't feel the pull yet to use the MacBook Pro over the Mac Studio because of speed. So, and I think that the same thing holds true for the iPad, that especially since it's kind of my secondary work machine, I don't feel like I'm going to need that right away. Although the one thing that I would love is the matte display, because I don't have the matte display on the 11-inch, and I have that on the MacBook Pro right now that I have on loan from Apple, and I love the matte display. The matte display is why I can work outside with my MacBook Pro, and it's a lot harder with it still works pretty well on the iPad Pro, because I did it just the other day. It's just that, there's a lot of reflections, but it's a bright screen, so even in bright sunlight, you can still see it pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, I have all the iPads. So
I know you do.
but like some of them are on loan from Apple. They're gonna go away. A couple of them are mine. Right now, I put 26 on the latest gen iPad Mini, the 11-inch iPad Pro, and the 13-inch iPad Pro, both of them with the M4. And the iPad Mini is like in a league of its own. It's like a completely different flavor of iPad OS. And it's fun to use. Like, I do find myself actually thinking, like, sometimes at the end of the workday, I still have my big iPad Pro, and I take it into the bedroom, and I'm holding the iPad Pro and reading an article, and I think, you know what, I actually want to switch to the iPad Mini. And it's that unique in between a phone and a tablet, which once again is why I'm wishing so much for Apple making foldables of all sizes. But that's beyond the point. I have been trying to understand, do I prefer iPadOS 26 on the 11 or on the 13? I think it works well on the 11. I think for me, it really shines on the 13. Like, there's something that calls to me, like the bigger size, the bigger windows, more space. I think it really lends itself well to that size. But enough about the iPad. I want to talk about the Mac.
Sure.
So I I have two Macs. On loan from Apple, I have the M3 Ultra Mac Studio with 512 gigabytes of RAM and 8 terabytes of storage.
That's a beast.
That's a big boy machine that I'm using right now to record this podcast. And I also have what do I have? Do you remember, John? Do I have the M4 Pro?
I think you have a
M4
M4 Pro.
M4 Pro. I have an M4 Pro
I
MacBook Pro, 14-inch, with nano texture display. And I put Tahoe on that one. And I still have Sequoia on the Mac Studio.
I haven't asked you about Tahoe. What do you think of Tahoe? I know you haven't used it a ton yet.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. And like, I think it's the platform where liquid glass makes the least sense. And what I'm actually discovering is that sometimes I'm looking for a button in a toolbar and it's not there unless I make the window bigger. And that was not the case with previous toolbars on macOS. And so it trips me up every once in a while. I do like the rounder aesthetic of the menus, of the dock.
Do you like the layered effect where the toolbars are above the window and the sidebars are above the window?
I think it kind of looks silly. I
don't mind it personally. I don't mind it at all, but I know a lot of people dislike it.
Yeah, not really. It looks kind of tacky for my taste. Like you got these pills basically hovering over
heavy
everything.
duty drop shadows.
I don't really like it myself, but it's it's serviceable. And I think liquid glass in this flavor on macOS, it doesn't make you scream, "Oh my God, this is so cool!" Right? That's my reaction.
It's a milder implementation than it was, at least initially, on iOS and iPadOS. I mean, and obviously these things are all still in flux, so we don't know. But let's get back to the Mac.
Anyway, I guess I would describe my usage of the Mac as follows. Increasingly over the past few weeks, I have enjoyed working at my desk. Since I finished it with my monitor and the KVM, I have really liked just sitting down here in my office with my Apple trackpad and Magic Keyboard and working with the Mac Studio. I got a big monitor in front of me, I got a lot of space, and that's what the Mac is great at. Just a desktop, as much power as I want, I can do whatever I want with this Mac Studio. It's actually spoiling me in many ways. And it's going to be sad whenever it's time to give it back. But I can install whatever large language model I want. I can run the full-blown DeepSeek on this thing or Kimi K2. Like I can run whatever I want on this. And I just like, obviously, the freedom of macOS when it comes to being on the bleeding edge of anything. I want to try the latest ChatGPT feature. It's available on the Mac. I want to try the new browser by Perplexity. It's available on the Mac. And especially in the AI space, all the latest cool things are happening on the Mac. At the same time, I obviously am very happy about iPadOS and iPadOS 26, and I love working with my iPad Pro because it is my favorite computing form factor. But it's been over a month since WWDC, and what I was saying at the beginning, like the fact that you have better multitasking, better windowing, local audio capture, a better Files app, that is all true. But it's still, right now, as of July, still doesn't change the fact that a lot of apps that I want to use are just not on the iPad, right? A lot of native apps are just not on the iPad. Or if they do have a native app, this is something that I wrote about a few months ago. I have an article on MacStories called The iPad's Sweet Solution. Like that article still holds true even after iPadOS 26. Because a lot of features of apps are only available in the web version of those apps, not in the iPad native version. Like if you take Todoist, for example, and you download Todoist on the App Store on the iPad, and then you go to Todoist in Safari, you're going to get a completely different experience. And is iPadOS 26 going to change that? I don't know. So all this to say that I was going to get to my MacBook Pro, that even though I love working with my iPad Pro and iPadOS 26, sometimes when I know I want to work with a portable computer, right? So for those times when I don't want to be in the office or can be in the office, there are times when I prefer using the MacBook Pro still, because maybe I got to do something that involves Mac only software or something that involves AI, or just having this is something that I actually sent as feedback to Apple and that I wrote in my story about the public beta for whatever the public beta is going to come out. But like all things being equal, like multitasking and windowing being sort of equal, I still get the feeling that macOS is snappier than iPadOS. It's like the animations are slower, like when you
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Everything is slow. Yeah, everything is kind of slowed
The
down in a
animation
way.
curve
Yeah.
or the transitions, like on the iPad, it feels like every animation, like it needs to be displayed to you. Like all the things move. I don't want to say in slow motion, but you can tell that they're moving. On macOS, you just click something and it appears. And I wish that, like, I know that reduce motion exists on iPadOS, but it also gets rid of other things that, I don't want to get rid of. So
Right.
there are times when I'm like, okay, I'm not in the office. Should I use the iPad Pro or should I use my MacBook Pro? And there are still times when I gravitate toward the MacBook Pro. Now, this is probably what Apple wants you to think is the best option. Like, I am the ideal Apple customer, right? I'm using all the Apple devices. I'm using all the Apple computers.
Yep.
Apple will tell you, oh, that's actually great that you're switching between an iPad and a MacBook Pro. It still feels kind of redundant to me to have both an iPad Pro and a MacBook Pro. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I hope that iPadOS 26 will do something to the third-party developer ecosystem to maybe push or convince developers to say, actually, we should pay more attention to our iPad apps now, because iPadOS 26 is pretty great, but I don't know.
Let me ask you this: do you ever carry both your MacBook Pro and your iPad?
Yeah,
Pro
which is not ideal. Yes.
Okay, well, I do the same thing, and I was just curious whether, coming from the other perspective, whether you do the same thing too. Because like what I did, the last couple of trips I took, I brought both the 14-inch MacBook Pro and the 11-inch iPad Pro. And when we went to WWDC, for instance, I only brought the iPad with me because I was going to just all I was doing was taking notes. And so that was lighter and easier to use, but I wanted the horsepower for doing video editing or audio editing and things of the MacBook Pro when I was back in my hotel room, that kind of thing. So I do that quite a bit. I don't do that so much when I'm at home. Like if I'm leaving here to go work somewhere else, I'll decide, is this going to be the kind of work, what I'll do in a day, for instance, is like in the morning, maybe, we're recording the show right now. When we're finished, you'll get me your files. I'll take the audio and I'll do a little bit of processing on the audio. And that's a Mac task because there are apps that I use there that are only available on the Mac, and it takes a while. It's a multi-step process. So I'll let that stuff go in the background, and then I'll kind of gather up my list of things that I want to do away from the house, where I'll be like, all right, well, I haven't checked my email yet really this morning, so I'll reply to some people. I haven't looked at RSS in a while. I'll bring that. I'll plan to read unread. I'll maybe do a little writing, and then I'll leave once that processing is done. And when I come back, then I can do the edit of the actual audio in Logic. So that's one of the things that I've been doing a lot more these days. The other thing, I guess, I would say about the 11-inch to me that's very different than my use of the 13-inch in the past is that when I had a 13-inch iPad Pro, it was always in the Magic Keyboard case. It really never left the keyboard case.
Yeah.
It was a laptop replacement. The 11-inch, I do swap out regularly. I have, if what I just described, when I leave the house, it'll be in the keyboard case because I'm going to be doing keyboard type work. But when I'm done working for the day in my office, I will pull the iPad out of the keyboard case and put it in the regular folio cover and bring that upstairs with me, and then sit on the couch and do some reading or maybe watch a YouTube video, whatever it is. And I do that a lot more than I used to. I do that probably almost every day now, which that was not the case at all with the 13-inch. Do you swap back and forth like that?
That I am exactly the same. And that is the one thing that still has me evaluating both the 11 and the 13, because I love working on the 13 as a laptop replacement, but whenever
Yep.
I take it out of the Magic Keyboard, which is a rare occasion, but when it happens, I'm holding this thing and it's like I'm holding a tray table right now. Like this
Yeah.
is not great. The 11 is much more modular as a device, which is the one thing that has me still like, like trying to evaluate and probably there's no absolute best, right?
It's closer to the form factor of like a hardback book. So it's kind of fits in your hand a lot better, I think. The 13-inch, you could say, oh yeah, it's like the size of a classic big glossy coffee table magazine or something. But the fact of the matter is it's kind of heavy because it's a big piece of glass and metal.
Yeah.
Whereas the 11-inch is just a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller, a little easier to manipulate either portrait or landscape.
I should keep trying. I should keep trying the 11. So this will be a work in progress. There are two more things I want to say about the Mac. The first one is that I really feel like it's, for me at least, it's not using the iPad or using the Mac. It's like now I can say I can do all my work on the iPad, right? With local audio capture, with the windowing, like I can say now with no more workarounds, I can do all my work on the iPad. And I guess now the conversation, the narrative will shift to, more so than before, will shift to, but are the apps I want to use on the iPad versus are they on the Mac? And the answer is yes, tends to be yes. So that I think will be something that, I don't want to say that like the honeymoon period with iPadOS 26 is over. I don't think it'll ever be over. What I'm trying to say is that Apple hasn't completely addressed the other part of the iPadOS problem, and they cannot address it because it's up to third-party developers. So
right. Well, it's partially up to them because it's up to them.
Partially up to them,
Apple.
sure.
It's up to Apple to incentivize developers and make it worth their while. Now, I will say your sweet solution. That reminds me. I wanted to mention. Your sweet solution isn't really a sweet solution in the sense that when you move to a web app, you lose a lot of the system stuff. You lose the ability to run shortcuts. You lose the ability to use the share sheet. You lose a lot of things. Yeah. And yes, you could have the Todoist app running alongside the web app so that you have some of that stuff available. I know exactly probably what you're doing to make all that work, but
you know everything.
It's really hacky. It's not great. I did try it a little bit myself with Shortwave and Todoist, and I forget what I did. Readwise Reader, I think I tried.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's trade-offs. It's a different set of trade-offs. You get more functionality for sure in the web apps of a lot of apps, but you lose a lot of the system stuff, which is also valuable to have. So
yeah. The final thing I wanted to say is more of a silly experiment idea that I had.
Okay.
I kind of half considered. This is probably gonna sound stupid. So I saw a friend of mine recently acquired an M4 Mac Mini, and I saw that thing in real life and thought, oh my God, this is so cute and adorable.
It is so nice.
And I had this half-baked thought of like, what if I put an M4 Mac Mini inside my nightstand? And
why though?
Okay. Hold on. Let me explain. So
okay.
I have been using, as you know, we talked about it on MPC, my
I know where this is
XR glasses again.
Yeah.
And as part of using the XR glasses with the iPad, what I realized that was not ideal is that, so I'm wearing the glasses at night and I'm watching videos or reading, and the glasses are connected to the iPad, right?
Yeah.
But I cannot interact with the iPad unless I look at the screen.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I purchased have you ever heard of like ergonomic mice that are actually like these vertical joysticks with a trackball?
Yeah.
So I ordered this. It's called the Elecom, Elecom, Elecom trackball mouse. Which my doorman has right now. I gotta pick it up later. The theory goes that I should be able to leave my iPad on the nightstand, connect my XR glasses, hold the trackpad,
Right.
like a joystick. It's like a
to move around the UI.
Remember the Wii nunchuck controller?
Yes, it's like that.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And then I can probably use like one of those mini keyboards, if I want text
I have
input.
one of those. One of those. There's a lot of those on Amazon. They're like $20.
Yeah,
and
super cheap.
Some of them even have like their own little trackpads on them that you can use even.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought, and in theory, this should work with the iPad. But that I'm going to try tonight. I'm going to test this tonight.
I like it.
But that thought planted a seed in my brain. And it had me go a step beyond. And the idea was, but what if that cable from the glasses didn't go into an iPad Pro, but went into a tiny little cute Mac Mini inside the night? I don't know.
No, you know what you could do? Then you could go, if you go to Retro Game Core, you could do that tutorial that Russ has where he sets up the Mac Mini as a retro gaming emulator machine. And you could have all your games running at like 6x right there on your nightstand connected to the glasses. You should see the look on Federico's face. Because I've started the process of setting this up myself. Think of that.
Shouldn't have said that,
Federico. Because with like a couple of gigs of storage, you would have your entire library of games right there on your nightstand and playing them at the highest possible resolution. Because the M4 you don't even have to have a high-end M4 Mini to do that. I mean, just get Pro.
What have I done? I shouldn't have said
What have I done? I just spent your money is what I did.
Oh. Well, okay, that's
that. Folks.
We're gonna talk about something else in AppStories Plus. It's still gonna be macOS related. We're gonna talk about the new flavor of automation, which is MCP. How are we using it? What is Apple doing there? We're gonna have a conversation about that.
Yeah. And if you want to get that post-show for AppStories, you just have to subscribe to AppStories Plus by going to appstories.plus. Or you can become a Club Premier member. That's Club Mac Stories, where we do all sorts of newsletters, have a Discord community, and have a lot of other perks for members, like discounts and things. But if you join Premier, not only do you get all that stuff, but you also get AppStories Plus each and every week, which is ad-free and extended and comes out a day early. The club, you just need to go to plus.club to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
And that's it for this week, Federico. We can be found, of course, over at macstories.net. You can find all of our projects there. And we are on social media. Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.